Almost 40 Chinese planes are spotted near Taiwan, the most in over a month. The WHO casts doubt on China's claim that few people are dying as COVID sweeps through the country. The transport minister promises there won't be a railway workers' strike over the holidays, but the workers' union says there is no consensus yet. I'm Liao for TaiwanPlus, and I'm at the tallest building in Taiwan, the Taipei 101, to learn more about the New Year's Eve fireworks show. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Liao. 39 Chinese warplanes were spotted around Taiwan's airspace. The Defense Ministry gave details on Thursday. 30 of them flew into Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. The zone is not part of the country's territory, but serves as a buffer for security purposes. The Chinese flight group included a combat drone, over 20 fighter jets, and an anti-submarine helicopter. China, which considers Taiwan as part of its territory, often sends warplanes into the ADIZ as a form of political pressure. There have been more than 1,600 incursions this year, a record number. Taiwan's military says it is monitoring the situation. For more on latest incursions, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Ben Lewis, an independent defense analyst based in Washington, D.C.
So what can you tell us about the recent incursion?
So today the MND put out a statement that said 30 aircraft were tracked in the ADIZ. This is the largest number in one day since November 7th. And it was a wide spread of aircraft. You had a UAV, you had a large quantity of fighter aircraft, 2 airborne early warning and command aircraft, and a Y-20 aerial refueling aircraft, which was conducting, it seemed to be an aerial refueling operation alongside some of the fighters, 4 strategic bombers. And additionally, you had a ship-launched helicopter to the southwest of Taiwan. So it was a complex operation drill they were running for this day's incursions, and I think it's very demonstrative of the PLA's growing capabilities. I think it's quite significant. I mean, the Y-20 came in, was activated at around late 2021, and the PLA now has the ability to fly its aircraft much further. And with these airborne early warning and command aircraft, they're coordinating with these different kinds of aircraft around the area of operations that they're flying in. And I think it provides them the ability to really maximize the diversity of their capabilities towards whatever objective they're trying to accomplish.
What can you tell us about the timing of this incursion?
So the incursion comes at kind of a unique intersection of events. An EU delegation is visiting Taiwan, bringing up discussions of potential trade deals. The Taiwanese military began new missile tests for its new anti-ship missile platform. That should go on throughout the week. And then, of course, China is experiencing massive COVID outbreaks, which is not really a good thing from a PR standpoint for Beijing. So really any of those things or all of those things could be the reason why Beijing has chosen to conduct such a large incursion. And then additionally, it's another example of Beijing attempting to normalize this kind of behavior and to kind of set the status quo in a very unpredictable state so that they can operate pretty much with impunity with their military assets.
That was Jaime Ocon speaking to military analyst Ben Lewis, who is in Washington, D.C. Taiwan's government will gradually restore some transport connections with China. The decision is meant to help speed up travel ahead of the busy holiday period.
农历春节是亲人团聚，是国人最重要的习俗。对于金门、马祖地区民众返乡过节的需求，要尽量给予协助，提供给乡亲最大的方便。
From early January through early February, charter flights will resume between the islands of Jinmen and Mazu and 3 Chinese cities. But only Jinmen and Mazu residents and their Chinese spouses can take those flights. Business, postal, and travel ties between the islands and China have been suspended since early 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Taiwan's transport minister has said that the country's train service will run as normal in January, allowing people to get back home for the Lunar New Year holiday. This comes as strike action has been threatened by the Taiwan Railway Labor Union. But the union says the minister jumped the gun on his announcement and that a deal has not been reached yet. Bing Wong has more.
Crisis averted. Maybe. On Wednesday, Taiwan's transport minister Wang Guocai announced that the nation's trains will be running as per usual during the upcoming holiday period.
所以有可能这个火车的班次有可能会受影响，是吗？
也不是，就是按照现在订票的状况，在春节期间的火车应该是没有问题。
His announcement comes at a time when a rail strike is looming. For 2 years, the railway union has protested plans to turn the Taiwan Railways Administration from a government agency to a state-owned company. It's meant to help turn around the loss-making administration and address safety concerns following 2 deadly train accidents in 2018 and 2021. However, the labor union has pushed back on this scheme. They say trains need proper maintenance before they can be deemed safe. The union has threatened to go on strike in January if their demands are not met. If that happens, it would mean trains would stop operating right before the Lunar New Year holidays. While the transport minister seems confident that rail services will be up and running as usual, a union official told TaiwanPlus that a consensus has not yet been reached. A strike, he says, is still on the table.
其实部长对外宣称说罢工已经解除，当然这只是他自己的说辞。部长也有打电话给我们理事长，理事长也愿意接受他的一个来说辞。不过我们约定的是在下个礼拜。整个方面里面来讲的话，我们要等到礼拜2跟部长沟通完毕以后，我们才能知道说我们后续的一些动作。
If a strike were to go ahead, hundreds of thousands of people will be affected. Both sides are hoping for a quick solution to ensure the trains are both safe to run and are able to continue passenger services. However, it seems that disagreements between the union and the ministry are still ongoing. Andy Xue and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Thursday is the winter solstice, and people in Taiwan are starting to bundle up as a new cold front nears. Our reporter Jeremy Olivier went out to see how people in Taiwan traditionally mark the shortest day of the year.
Few people in the West observe the winter solstice, which falls on December 22nd this year. But in Taiwan, this day, known in Chinese as Dongzhi, is almost as important as the Lunar New Year. So what do Taiwanese people usually do on Dongzhi?
冬至是代表我们台湾人的习俗代表那个福满圆满，大家吃汤圆就很圆满的意思。
我们会就是全家去超市买汤圆，然后回家煮这样子。
吃汤圆啊，像今天就是来买汤圆啊，吃汤圆。对，我都吃芝麻汤圆。
So as you can see, most people spend time with family and eat tangyuan during the winter solstice. These glutinous rice balls are usually served in a warm, sweet broth or with red bean soup. They often come in 2 colors, white and pink, and there's a saying that if you don't eat both together, you won't grow a year older.
Well, I'm definitely not getting any younger, but that's okay. If there's good food involved, you can count me in. So to get into the solstice spirit, I've decided to grab a bowl of tangyuan at a local vendor.
You can find tangyuan pretty much anywhere in Taiwan, but some places have their own food traditions to greet the winter months. The southern city of Tainan boasts a steamed dumpling dish named after the holiday called Dongzhi Bao. It's made with wheat flour, which gives its skin a thick texture, and filled with minced pork and vegetables. Locals say it has a particular significance.
是缅怀我们的祖先，告诉我们祖先，这一年我们也是丰收的，也是很平安的。
This food is so popular around the solstice time that many of the shops that make it are having trouble keeping up with the demand.
3天的有定量是3000几粒。
Back in Taipei, I'm fine with sticking with the classic tangyuan this year, but I might need to wait for it to cool off first.
Is Naya Cho and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
The World Health Organization is calling on China to share reliable and thorough data on COVID infections and deaths in the country. According to Beijing, only a handful of people have died this week of the virus, but experts at the WHO say intensive care units are filling up. China's 1.4 billion people are vulnerable to the virus because of limited exposure over recent years and low vaccination rates. Since 2020, China had pursued a COVID-0 policy, which included forcing people into quarantine camps. but the policy was dropped following widespread protests. Jia Yanzong, Associate Professor of Politics at National University of Singapore, has been watching China's COVID response. He spoke to TaiwanPlus reporter Rick Glauert.
So could you tell us a little bit about your understanding of what is actually happening in China at the moment with regards to the COVID-19 situation?
It's actually quite difficult to understand what's going on in China right now. It's a massive country. There are lots of controls on information. So what we're able to tell comes in bits and pieces from social media as well as the official media. There seems to be some difference between what's being reported. Social media seems to be saying that in some places there are lots of hospitalizations, there are lots of bodies at morgues and crematoria. The official media is seeming to play down the infection numbers, but of course, China is a massive country. It could possibly be the case that we have some hospitals and some morgues in some places being overwhelmed and other places that are not.
This comes at the end of many years of COVID-0 in China. How prepared is the country to deal with an influx of infections?
Right. So I think what's quite surprising about China's response is that it's bought itself a lot of time. But within that time, it seems not to have gotten the vaccination rates up to the level that it's wanted. It seems not to have gotten the mRNA vaccines that seem more effective than the vaccines that China has at the moment. At the same time, the hospitals, the hospital beds, medical facilities don't seem to have been prepared, right, in a way that is also surprising because, as we saw earlier on in the pandemic, China was able to set up field hospitals really, really quickly. So all this seems somewhat surprising. Perhaps there's a bit of complacency on the part of the CCP. Perhaps it's some sort of miscalculation. But because the system is so opaque, it's really difficult to know.
The abandoning of strict COVID-0 and the opening up of China was prompted by large-scale protests, which was seen as a serious challenge to Xi Jinping's rule. Now that the country is relaxing its COVID measures, does Xi Jinping still face a challenge?
So I don't think the protest in the first instance was a challenge to Xi Jinping's rule, although there were slogans to that effect. What appears to be the case is a challenge to Xi Jinping's policy. And in the longer run, if this leads to more questioning of Xi's judgment, more doubt over Xi's leadership, that could have a challenge to his leadership. But we'll have to see that come from within the CCP, within the Chinese Communist Party, rather than the populace because of the big power asymmetry. But that's not something that's evident as yet.
That was Jia Yanzong of the National University of Singapore speaking to reporter Rick Glauert about China's COVID-19 situation. Coming up, we're in southern Taiwan for a music festival celebrating the country's migrant workers. Stay tuned.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. U.S. President Joe Biden has pledged unwavering support to Ukraine during a meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington. Zelensky earlier addressed Congress and presented a battle-scarred Ukrainian flag from frontline soldiers. It's his first known trip outside Ukraine since Russia invaded in February. Just before he arrived, the U.S. announced a new military package worth $1.8 billion. Zelensky thanked Congress and American citizens for their support.
Our two nations are allies in this battle. And next year will be a turning point. I know it, the point when Ukrainian courage and American resolve must guarantee the future of our common freedom, the freedom of people who stand for their values.
China is building up artificial land on unoccupied islands in the South China Sea. That's according to Western officials. Satellite images show new sand and land bridges on 4 unoccupied features in the Spratly Islands. Speaking to Bloomberg, U.S. officials said this is the first time China has expanded land mass on disputed islands it did not already occupy. The move is part of Beijing's long-running effort to strengthen claims to disputed territories in a region critical to global trade. China has had long-standing territorial disputes with neighboring countries over its claims to large parts of the South China Sea. For more on the latest developments, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Liao, director of the Taiwan Center for Security Studies.
What can you tell us about the recent developments from China trying to militarize the South China Sea?
China actually started from 2014, conducting massive land reclamation effort. And so far, they have successfully built 7 artificial islands in the Spratly Island. And some of these specific islands, in particular, Fiery Cross Reef, now has been turned into a strategic outpost at the center of Spratly Island. China has made this special artificial island into something critically important with military deployment. And so far, they have done a pretty good job on the land reclamation as well, and of course, the building construction, everything they have made pretty up to modern technology. So I think China has so far done very successful advancement in the South China Sea.
And would you say that, in creating these islands, what's the justification? Does China have claims to these islands, or what do you see from your research?
China, of course, based on the historic claim, which is what they called the so-called 9-dash line. And this 9-dash line was originated from Republic of China, which is our government drew this line back in 1947. South China Sea is one of the important sea area globally. And every year, in terms of trade, there have been different calculations, but more than perhaps 2/3 of international trade passing through South China Sea, because as you know now, in this part of the Asia, we have China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and also stretching up further to the north, the United States and Canada. As we understand, most of the artificial island in the Spratly built by China have already equipped with anti-ship missiles, also anti-air defense system. So obviously they are preparing to strengthen their presence and also their stronghold in the South China Sea for now.
That was Jaime Okan speaking to Taipei-based security analyst Liao. Taiwan is home to more than 700,000 migrant workers, mostly from Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Thailand. To celebrate the diversity they bring, the Kaoshiung Music Center held a music festival ahead of International Migrants Day. Yu Jing Huang traveled to southern Taiwan to bring us this report.
This is Southern Riot, an indie rock band from Indonesia. They create music that reflects the lives of migrant workers in Taiwan. This is their first original piece, a love song from Indonesian migrant workers. They wrote it for a migrant workers rally in January. The Mandarin words are what migrant workers often hear from their supervisors at work. They're using the same words as lyrics to denounce the Taiwanese government's unfair treatment of migrant workers. The band knows the situation well. They themselves are migrants who live and work in Taiwan.
Mewakili teman-teman semua ya, keluh ke saya. Setiap undang-undang yang diturunkan untuk migran, buruh kerja itu buruh pabrik, entah itu nelayan, entah itu PRT. Ada satu titik saja yang misalkan tidak sesuai dengan kami. Nah, kami tuangkan di lagu itu.
Today, the band has come here to perform in Kaoshiung. The port city is home to 64,000 migrant workers. And this year, they've organized a massive concert, the first annual Migrants in Kaoshiung Music Festival.
It's a free concert that brings together a diverse audience. And it's not just migrant workers on stage. Well-known bands from across Southeast Asia and Taiwan have come to perform. The Kaoshiung Music Center's CEO, Xin Li, says the event is a way for people to connect with one another.
台湾就是自古以来都是移民的社会，那先来后到，本来就有各式各样不同融合的族群。那我们常常在说谁才是真正的台湾人，谁最早来或什么的。但是其实流行音乐其实早就已经在做这个包容跟多元的元素。
One of the bands at the festival, Warplanes, sings in one of Taiwan's indigenous languages. They've released a hard rock album in the Dawu language of Orchid Island. There's only one Dawu member of the band, but they say that their main language is music. And that's something they share in common with the other bands at the festival.
我们听不懂他们在唱什么，那他们可能也听不懂我们在唱什么，但是透过音乐可以传递出就是我们想要表达的东西跟力量。对，那他们一定也感受得到，我们也一定感受得到他们想要表达的东西，这样子。
Taiwan, how are you feeling tonight? This is Retrospect.
One of the groups that flew in for the festival is Retrospect, a rock band from Thailand. They say the most memorable part of the night was the reaction of the audience, many of whom are migrant workers from Thailand.
I can see it in their eyes. I can see how people sang to our songs and they had like, they're just so happy. Those people miss their home, and this is like bringing their home to them.
For many people in the audience, it was the first time hearing groups from the Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand, alongside indigenous bands from Taiwan.
平常不会听到这样子的音乐，也不会看到这样子的表演，会有帮助说了解到他们是怎么样子的人。
Dengan adanya event-event kayak gini, saya merasa di Taiwan tuh lebih bangga sama karya-karya anak Indonesia di Taiwan khususnya gitu.
The languages of Taiwan often draw lines across this diverse nation, but at this unique concert, those lines are blurred, with people dancing to the rhythms of a common language, the language of music. Kamashi and Eugene Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's tallest skyscraper, Taipei 101, headlines the country's New Year's Eve celebrations every year. At the crack of midnight on January 1st, the building puts on a lights and fireworks show that can be seen for miles. Earlier today, I went to Taipei 101 to get a preview of what people can expect from the annual spectacle as they ring in 2023. And I brought some holiday cheer with me. Welcome to the 58th floor of the tallest skyscraper in Taiwan, the Taipei 101. One of the highlights of New Year's Eve every year in Taiwan is the building's fireworks show. Now, this year's spectacle is being organized by a team behind some of Taiwan's biggest award ceremonies. Taipei 101 tries to up the ante every year, and we're here to preview how they're setting up the spectacle. Let's go find out what people can expect. To kick off 2023, Taipei 101 is going to set off 16,000 fireworks over the course of 5 minutes. To make that happen, firework arrays have to be manually mounted onto the building's facade. The pyrotechnics will come in all shapes and sizes, like a smiley face, which will be launched from this steel apparatus. And these will be no ordinary fireworks either.
那今年的烟火比较特别，是我们特别有从欧洲进了比较低烟的烟火，比较少烟的，所以希望这个烟也会呈现出来，会比以往少一些。
But pyrotechnics aren't the only part of this year's show. There's also going to be lights and lasers, lots of them. In years past, a main display was hung up on only the north side of the tower. But this year, spectators on all sides of the building will be able to enjoy the spectacle.
我们的灯网还是维持在北面为主，但是为了让其他面都看得到，我们在其他的大楼上面有装了雷射，投射到大楼上。
Organizers expect this year's show to attract over 1 million people to areas around the building. But with the new low-smoke fireworks and the 360-degree light show display, well, Taipei 101 is sure to dazzle spectators near and far in the first minutes of 2023. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, we leave you with images of Paris glittering with Christmas lights and decorations as the holiday season is in full swing. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.